is the response that we find from many people. And so let us now look at our study for today. I want to study with you the thief on the cross. And I raise the question, can men living today be saved by doing just exactly what the thief on the cross did? And I suggest to you that the answer is no. The Bible answer to that question is no. And that's the case because the thief lived under a different dispensation, a different testament from what we did. Now let us notice in Matthew chapter 27, verses 41 to 44. In like manner also the chief priests, mocking him with the scribes and elders, said, He saved others, himself he cannot save. He is the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe on him. He trusteth on God. Let him deliver him now, if he desireth him. For he said, I am the Son of God. And the robbers also that were crucified with him cast upon him the same reproach. And now let us note in Luke chapter 23, verses 39 to 42. This is a passage which tells us the fact of the thief making this application to Jesus to remember him when he came into his own cross, into his own kingdom. Beginning now with verse 39. And one of the malefactors that were hanged railed on him, saying, Art not thou the Christ? Save thyself and us. But the other answered and rebuking him said, Dost thou not even fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said, Jesus, remember me when thou comest in thy kingdom. And he said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. This is found in Luke chapter 23, verse 43. I think there's no doubt that the thief was saved. That's what Jesus was telling him, that he would be with him in paradise, which is where the righteous go at the time of their death. But now we raise the question, could the thief, by just saying, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom, can men today be saved by doing just what the thief did, by just saying, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom? Now, before we can answer that question from the Bible, we need to look at some principles concerning law, that is, just law in general, and then we'll look at some principles of the law in the Bible itself. First of all, I point out to you that the only persons who are under obligation to obey a law are those to whom the law is addressed. Now, we read in Romans chapter 3 and verse 19, we know that what things soever a law saith, it saith to them that are under the law. For instance, if the legislature in Tennessee or Mississippi or Texas or any other state makes a law, the law passed by the Tennessee legislature applies only to the people of Tennessee and those who may go into the geographical confines of that state, and so it is with Mississippi and with Texas. Then a law may at one time be enforced to a group of people and then be repealed, that is, no longer be in force for those folks. In Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 9, we learn that Jesus taketh away the first that he may establish the second. We all know that the state of Texas has been under 6 flags, but it is no longer under the domination of the laws of Mexico. Doesn't matter what law Mexico passed, it is not applicable. People in the state of Texas do not have to obey it. The United States at one time had a law against the sale of intoxicating liquors. It ought to have one now, but it doesn't. At any rate, that law no longer applies to men today, and you can, without violating the law of the United States, sell intoxicating liquor if you have a license to do so. And then further, where there is no law, there is no transgression. Romans chapter 4 and verse 15. And so these 3 principles are very vital. These principles of law apply to the Bible, as I've already indicated to you by calling attention to some of the verses of Scripture that we have noted. Notice the first principle. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it speaketh to them that are under the law. Romans chapter 3 and verse 19. Back in the days the law of Moses was in effect. If the law of Moses, of course, being addressed to the Jews, the Gentiles were not under obligation to obey it. And then in Romans 4 and 15, but where there is no law, neither is there transgression. You cannot be a transgressor without breaking or violating a law. Now, and we carry principle number 2. Patriarchal law, which was the law which the rest of mankind continued under, when God gave the law of Moses to the Jews. The Jews was given to Israel, and only to Israel. It was not given to Gentiles. But those who were Gentiles continued on under patriarchal law, where God gave instructions to individuals or to the heads of families. The patriarchal simply means father rule. The law of Moses has been repealed, and therefore even Jews are not under the law of Moses anymore. The Bible makes clear that's the case. Patriarchal law has been repealed. Mosaic law has been repealed. Everybody on earth is now under the gospel. Jesus said, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." No one can learn what to do by studying instructions given before the law of Moses. Now, friends, you cannot learn what to do to be saved other than in principle. But I mean, when you cannot learn what to do to be saved, I mean the details, the specific details of the individual acts of obedience you must do to be saved are not to be found in the instructions before the law of Moses was given. Adam was instructed, "Do not eat of a tree." You'll not profit anything in God's sight by refusing to eat of a certain tree. Noah was told to build an ark. It won't be a blessing to you to build an ark. God hasn't told you to do that. He told Noah, but he hasn't told any of us living today. God told Abraham to go into the land of Moriah and offer his son. But that certainly is not instruction to you. We can learn a great deal both from Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moses and all the others under the Old Testament. Paul said in Romans 15:4, the things are written aforetime were written for our learning and for our admonition. But none of those specific details are involved to us. No one today can learn what to do by studying the law of Moses. It was given only to Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 2 verses 2 and 3 and Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses 7 and 8 and Exodus chapter 20. That law was given to Israel. Now it is true that the principles are just as much a part of the new covenant as they were of the old, but the specific details are not. The law of Moses was given only to Israel. That's the basic reason why you're not under it. It did not offer absolute forgiveness of sin. Paul made clear in Romans chapter 3 there was a passing over the sin done aforetime, and the blood of bulls and goats cannot take away sin, Hebrews 10:4, and yet apart from the shedding of blood there is no remission of sins, Hebrews 9:22. And it was taken out of the way, Colossians 2:14, Galatians 4:21-31, and Ephesians chapter 2:13-16. Let's look at Colossians 2:14. We find here a very, very important statement for us today in the matter of the Old Covenant and the New Covenant and what we are to do today. In regard to the Old Testament, having blotted out the bond written in ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and he hath taken it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. Jesus nailed the law of Moses to the cross. And now notice in Galatians chapter 3, verses 23-25. But before faith came, actually in the Greek this is the faith. It means before the faith, before the gospel, before the law of Christ came into effect, we were kept in ward. That is, we Jews, Paul was saying, were kept in ward under the law, shut up unto the faith which should afterwards be revealed. So that the law is become our tutor to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But now that faith is come, we are no longer under a tutor. Galatians chapter 3, verses 23-25. Now that the gospel is in force, Paul is saying, nobody, not even the Jews who were at one time under the law of Moses, are now under that law. In Galatians chapter 4, verses 21-24, tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, that is, under the law of Moses, do you not hear the law? In other words, won't you even listen to the law itself to see that it would tell you that you're not under it? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the handmaid and one by the free woman. Howbeit the son by the handmaid is born after the flesh, but the son of the free woman is born through promise, which things contain an allegory, for these two women are two covenants, one from Mount Sinai, that indicated Hagar and the Old Testament, bearing children into bondage, which is Hagar. But Sarah represented the new covenant. And then in Galatians chapter 4, verses 28-31, for we, brethren, as Isaac was, are children of promise. But as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the Spirit, so also it is now. Howbeit, what saith the Scripture? Cast out the handmaid and her son. That is,